Donald Trump just opened a new front, and this time, it's not political. According to new reporting, the U.S. military is quietly massing troops, bombers, and naval ships across the Caribbean. And once again, Trump is dressing it up as a drug war while laying the groundwork for something far more dangerous, a war of distraction. While millions of Americans are struggling under the ongoing government shutdown that Trump himself created, he's sending thousands of troops and B-52 bombers toward Latin America. Officials are calling it a training exercise, but experts know what that usually means, an operation in disguise. Venezuela and Colombia are now on edge, because when Trump says training, it often ends in tragedy. Regional analysts point out that the U.S. buildup includes over 10,000 troops deployed across Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Cuba, supported by more than a dozen naval vessels. They're calling it a drill, but history tells us drills can quickly become wars. And with Trump's record, that's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. Let's hear what one of his fellow Republicans had to say.
There is no fentanyl made in Venezuela. Not just a little bit, there's none being made in Venezuela. These are outboard boats that, in order for them to get to Miami, would have to stop and refuel 20 times. They're in all likely going to Trinidad and Tobago, which is an island right off of the coast of Venezuela. So there's a lot of reasons to be worried about this. But number one is the broader principle of when can you kill people indiscriminately? When you're at war. That's why when we declare war, it's supposed to be done by Congress. It's supposed to be thoughtful. It's supposed to be debated. And we're not supposed to do it willy-nilly. And then when you have war, you just kill people in the war zone. And even then there are rules of engagement. But interdicting drugs has always been a criminal activity and a criminal anti-crime sort of activity where we don't just summarily execute people. We actually present evidence. And
that's Senator Rand Paul, a Republican, making it clear that Trump's so-called war on fentanyl is built on a lie. There's no fentanyl production in Venezuela, and the idea of blowing up boats in international waters is both unconstitutional and illegal. But the Trump administration isn't treating this like law enforcement, it's treating it like conquest. And according to the Washington Post, it's already begun. Trump beats the drums of war for direct action in Venezuela. By his own count, President Donald Trump has settled 8 wars from the Gaza Strip to Southeast Asia during his 9 months in office, but in a place much closer to home, he now seems determined to start one. With dozens of warships and planes and thousands of U.S. troops newly deployed to the Caribbean Sea, Trump has declared an armed conflict with the drug trafficking groups he has designated international terrorists. U.S. airstrikes have blown up at least 7 boats that Trump has charged with carrying drugs to the United States in international waters from Venezuela, in the process killing dozens of alleged traffickers. He has also signed a new finding or authorization document for CIA covert operations in Venezuela and charged the president, Nicolas Maduro, with being illegitimately elected and heading a narcotics cartel. I authorized it for 2 reasons, Trump said last week. Venezuela, he said, was the worst abuser of open border policies under the Biden administration, emptying its prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums of migrants to the United States. The other thing is drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. Asked if he had authorized the CIA to take out Maduro, Trump said, "It would be a ridiculous question for me to answer, but I think Venezuela is feeling the heat." While Trump's precise instructions to the CIA are highly classified, 2 people familiar with the document he signed described it as authorizing aggressive agency action against the Venezuelan government and associated drug traffickers. The document does not explicitly order the CIA to overthrow Maduro, but it authorizes steps that could lead to that outcome, said the people familiar with it. It would certainly ratchet things up if they began doing strikes on land inside Venezuelan territory, especially if those strikes had a political purpose, said Tom Shannon, who served in several senior position State departments, including Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs and Undersecretary for Political Affairs during the Obama administration and for the first 5 months of Trump's first term. This is where I think the administration is going to get into some trouble. They are not being clear to the American people about what's going on here, Shannon said. If it's just drug trafficking, great. But they've got a way oversized force, and there is an intimidation message here that is only being articulated through acts and through the announcement of COVID actions inside Venezuela. Admiral Alvin Halsey resigned just last week as the head of the U.S. Southern Command less than a year into a 3-year appointment, something that Shannon and others attributed to his discomfort over the Caribbean operations. Critics have argued that the strikes are violations of U.S. international law and that the administration has not provided sufficient evidence or credible legal justification. Neither Halsey nor Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a reason for the admiral's departure, but you have to assume this is why he decided his career is over with, said Shannon. This is going to be my legacy. War crimes. So Trump's drug operation has already turned lethal. 7 boats bombed, dozens dead, and not a shred of evidence linking Venezuela to fentanyl. And yet, his administration is authorizing CIA actions that could spark regime change, or worse, a full-scale war. It's Iraq all over again, except this time the pretext is even thinner. Let's be honest, this isn't about drugs, and it's not about democracy. It's about oil and distraction. Trump is using military aggression to drown out domestic scandal. He's wagging the dog, launching missiles abroad to divert attention from the Epstein files, the shutdown, and his collapsing political power at home. And while he hides behind law and order rhetoric, he's breaking international law in plain sight. When the truth finally comes out, this operation won't be remembered as a defense mission. It'll be remembered as an illegal strike for political survival. Venezuela doesn't make fentanyl, but Trump's White House is manufacturing something just as toxic: chaos for profit. And Americans will once again pay the price. If you believe war should never be used as political theater, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tell us in the comments. Should Congress stop Trump's illegal Venezuela operation before it becomes another forever war? Because silence in moments like this is complicity.